Welcome into the Hang Time Podcast. I'm your host, Sekou Smith, here in the Orlando bubble, trying to survive another day in this basketball mad paradise that we call the bubble. And the Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals are in full swing. Joining us today to talk a little bit about what's going on down here in the bubble is Brian Anderson of TNT, play-by-play announcer. You've heard his voice on these games, and just a fantastic job that he does on the air as always. BA, thanks for joining me, man. I know I'm on the green side of this basketball universe. You're on the yellow side. I know what our isolation is like when we're not at the games. What's it like on the yellow side of the road?
Well, we don't call it green and yellow, Sekou. We call it the cool side and the others. We're the others that Shaq likes to talk about. You're definitely in there on the cool side. Our existence here is, I think, a little bit easier than yours. The quarantine period was much shorter. We've been able to go in and out, although I haven't gone in and out. Others have. It's just a 2-day quarantine. And, we get our temperatures checked every day, but we coronavirus test every third day about. So that's about the difference. We have a little more freedom to roam, and maybe more importantly than anything else, we have room service, and you don't. So the cool kids get left out on a little bit of that. But no, it's been great. I mean, honestly, other than being away from my family, and you're in the same boat, and we're all kind of in that same boat where we miss our friends, our family, our communities. It could not be better. The Turner, Warner Media, they've done an incredible job with the NBA to put this together. From the broadcasting side of it, that's another world that has to happen, not just the players and the playing of the games, but the world of broadcasting. NBA basketball is a different world, and we have to keep our people safe too, and that means bringing in extra trucks so there's room to spread out, because we have these massive shows, as you know. It's not just me and C Webb and Reggie and Allie. There's a whole crew of people, up around 100, 120, and they have to have space as well, and we have to look out for each other as well. So we started it with the match. If you remember the match, the golf event, that turns out to be the first bubble.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of NBA reps there, and eager to see how that went. And the NBA was next, and then baseball will be next. The NFL's already started. So they've really set it up beautifully. And I think Warner Media and Turner Sports specifically deserves a lot of credit for thinking about us that way, in parallel to the league thinking about the players and the personnel on that side of it.
How different are the games to you? I'll tell you honestly, once I'm in the gym and they throw that opening tip up, I get lost in what's going on between the lines and on the court. It doesn't feel any different to me watching a game now as it did before. But I know they're being consumed differently outside of the bubble. I was home for the start of play down here, the seeding games and everything. So I did get a chance to see it from that other side. How different is it for you in terms of what you're watching, the calls you're making, and how you kind of process your routine during the game?
It's a lot different. It's not hard. It's just different to do our jobs. To do my job as a play-by-play announcer, it's just different. There are sight lines that are different. Where your rhythms of the nonverbal communication that you might have with your analyst. It's been a lot less physical because Reggie Miller pretty much posts me up on every big dunk or play. So I'm not taking elbows to the ribs anymore because of the plexiglass. But there's just little things that, remind you that this is an unusual time. Basically, the games for me, I've been lost in the competition just like you. I think that's a credit to the players. I think basketball has been their only outlet. I think they're better because of it. I'll be really interested to find out a case study a few years down the road. If players do trim down their social life a little bit, because here there's no travel. They're not out. The squad's not here. The family's not here. You're not having to deal with tickets. You're not having to entertain. You're just playing basketball. And I know for a lot of those players, the boredom is a factor. And, talking to Jamal Murray, he said he's been taking 3-4 hour naps every day.
Right.
But he's been balling, man. And I think these players are realizing you're seeing in other sports, taking care of yourself, preparing for games. They look fresh. Even the older guys, they look fresh. They're playing hard. And the games are the best moment of their day. And not that that wasn't always the case, but I think it's just hyper focused again on what they're doing for a living. So I've been really impressed with the games. From a broadcasting standpoint, the only time you really feel it is after a big moment. So game 2, for example, Anthony Davis hits a buzzer beating shot, or OG Anunoby hits a buzzer beater for Toronto in game 3 in that Toronto Boston series. Those were our games. And as a play-by-play announcer, you make those calls and your instincts are you make the call and you just let the roar of the crowd
Right.
fill in all the spaces. And then it takes about 5 seconds as your voice is ricocheting back off you off that plexiglass, and you realize that's not the case. There's nothing for our director, Andrew Greathouse, to shoot. There's not many replays as far as fans go, crowd reaction for our producer, Tom Heights, to produce. So then it forces you to recalibrate, get back in, kind of summarize what it is. And it's a very strange experience. I felt like watching games in the bubble, much different experience than what folks at home are enjoying. That feels somewhat normal to me. When I was home before I arrived here watching the seeding games, it felt like normal broadcast. The sounds were normal, the voices were normal, the reactions were normal. But you get here and it feels like a movie set. And behind those LED boards, behind those big black curtains, there's empty space. That is apparent in every way when you walk around the arena. And right after, Anthony Davis makes this shot, and literally 2 minutes later, we're off the air, we're walking outside. There's not a soul in the wide world of sports complex as we walk back to the bus. It's just very surreal.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And it was jarring for me the first game I went to. Just understanding that, hey, things are going to happen through the course of a game that you would normally get that, as you mentioned, that crowd reaction or that vibe in the building when a moment in a game changes everything and it kind of goes in a different direction. You can sense the mood of the crowd change. You don't have that now. The weirdest thing for me was watching Miami win a series and they're moving on to the conference finals. And, normally if you're at home, there's this raucous attitude, crowd going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They did kind of an old school eighth grade, baseball team handshake line amongst each other and just went to the locker room like, like, oh, well, no big deal. I was sitting there in that moment thinking, now that's strange. Like, we're going to crown a champion, BA, and there's not going to be a rope line. There's not going to be confetti. I don't even know how to anticipate what that's going to be like seeing somebody win a championship in that fashion.
It feels like I did a lot of golf in my day and used to work for Golf Channel, and we would stage these trophy presentations. We would rehearse them. So we would rehearse those the Sunday morning before, and we would have stand-ins for the winners. And okay, you're going to stand here, and the sponsors and all the people involved. You've seen those a million times. Those golf trophy presentations, and it feels like the rehearsal, except it's real. And I don't even know what we're going to do, what Turner's going to do to crown a Western Conference champion. How do we? I'm not sure. I haven't heard yet, so I'm not sure if we just take it into the locker room, and we can't get down there, so it's not like I'll be presenting anybody a trophy
Right.
like I have in golf and in Major League Baseball. But yeah, and then it's not just those moments right after, like I'm with you. And it's even 20 minutes after when you're back in your hotel room. I'm sure for players coming off the adrenaline of that, the buzz of that, I'm sure they're probably sticking together on some level, but ultimately to be back in your room and the walls are just, that's just you and the walls. There's going to be some great books. Maybe you'll write one, Sekou. There's going to be some great stories, great books coming out of the bubble, and there'll be some fascinating stories for sure.
Everybody is trying to document this the best way they can. I think it's interesting that some people have taken to social media and are doing it in real time. I'm curious what it's going to feel like and look like to everybody, players, media, whoever's here, when we get a little distance, when we get home and say you're home for a month. And how do you look back on this experience? I'm upset that we don't have a good line to the teams and players that have already gone home just to see how they've dealt with leaving here when you've been here for as long as you have. And I think about the two teams that are going to play for a championship. Yeah, they'll have been here for so long. I don't imagine it's going to be a very easy thing for either one of them. You leave here with the Larry O'Brien Trophy, you're going to be ecstatic about winning the championship, but are you going to have a parade? How do you celebrate it when you get out of here, since we're still dealing with this global pandemic? And then if you lose after being here all that time, how do you recover? emotionally, or as a group. You're not going to have your normal schedule. You're going to get out of here, and it's going to be October. It's going to be Halloween before you know it, as opposed to the 4th of July, which is our normal, routine coming out of an NBA season.
I think we're hearing a little bit of that. I remember Nikola Jokic telling Michael Malone before Game 7, well, it was his birthday. Remember, he turned 49 that day, and he said, well, I'm going to give you two presents. Either you get to go home to see your family, or you get to win a Game 7 and move on. So, and we're hearing from the television side, I've heard from our colleagues, I've heard from Kevin Harlan and Ian Eagle, and those guys are busy doing the NFL, but they realize, the bubble was very interesting and fun. And yes, they are glad to be doing what they do for a living still, and in some cases back home. But I think we're going to get a sense of both of that. Much different consequences. I preface this by saying much different consequences, but it does feel like an assignment, a leave from a military base or a military assignment. A deployment. And again, much different consequences, but it is the all or nothing. You're going from something that consumed you every minute, every hour of every day for months, and now you're going to try to go back to your home, your community, and try to reacclimate into that. And that's not an easy thing to do either. I can speak, from a broadcasting perspective, having done Major League Baseball all these years. When you do finish a baseball season and in the summer, and you're turning into the fall, and you finally get home, it's a little strange. You have to find your way back in the house if you're married, and if you have a family and
right.
Your kids, you're not part of the rhythm. And I hope my dog doesn't bite me when I get home. And I think there's going to be a lot of good come out of it. There's going to be a lot of changes come out of this. I'm very curious to see what the bubble spins off into as we hopefully get back to somewhat normal life as soon as we can.
There was an interesting moment after the game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, where LeBron James talked about the MVP balloting and kind of how he felt about it. For those of us sitting in the room as he's talking, who are voters, I do the Kia Racing MVP ladder every Friday on NBA.com. So I was appreciative of the fact that I know LeBron is consuming it. He's paying attention to how we vote. He probably knows who the voters are now that I realize that he's counting his 16 first place votes and then wondering why these other people didn't vote for him. Did you think he was on point with his comments just about being curious or having a head scratching moment about the system that allows certain things that doesn't allow others? I wasn't upset that LeBron said what he said. I was kind of weirded out in a little way, BA, that he didn't go in there and stump for Anthony Davis. I was thinking, if he's going to make bones about the MVP race, which Giannis cleaned up in the first place votes, but Anthony Davis was 6th, and he led the Lakers in 13 different statistical categories. I don't know why I was anticipating that LeBron would say something about AD, but I was going, this is maybe his chance to stump for AD, because he spent so much time this season talking Anthony Davis up to us and making sure that we focused on the fact that Anthony Davis was a great player, and finally on this playoff stage.
Well, alpha dogs will alpha is how I put that. And, I feel like that's LeBron putting everybody on notice, similar to what would happen in the middle of a game with an officiating crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am paying attention. Not that you're going to change your vote or feel differently, but just know that I'm on the other side paying attention. And we know LeBron James doesn't miss anything, ever. So I felt like, for me, good. That feels like entertainment to me. And I don't have an MVP vote, but I would not have put LeBron James first on my ballot. I wouldn't have. I mean, I don't mind saying that. I would have had Giannis. But it's okay that he feels that way. And when you're 35 years old and you're 17 and you're looking for things that bother you and looking for chips, that's a good chip, man. Go ahead. LeBron James doesn't have many chips to put on his shoulder. There's just not many people that are dissing LeBron James that he can use as bulletin board material, right? He's run out of the pie chart. So if he found a little slice on the pie chart, like, ooh, they got me here. I think all the great ones do that. I think Tom Brady's doing that right now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've heard Aaron Rodgers do it in the NFL. I heard CC Sabathia do it in Major League Baseball. You know what? Whatever it takes for you to continue your greatness and us to be entertained and enjoy what you're doing. I am all for. So it probably was uncomfortable sitting there for you, but it makes for good TV. It makes for good talk show fodder. And that's great that people are talking about the game. And I do think people will pay attention to their votes differently. Not everybody, because he's not pointing the finger at everybody.
Right.
He's pointing the finger at people who do flippantly make their votes, and then, or maybe we should examine who gets a vote. I don't know.
Right.
I don't even know the process, but for me, it's just an interesting sidebar that LeBron has taken on as something to give him some motivation, and it became a very interesting post-game press conference. We're all about the entertainment part of this. They had a little hint of WWE in there, or AEW, I better say. AEW in there.
Yeah, it was fun. We're all kind of dialed into what's going on, and that was like, you should have seen the ears perk up in the room, because some of us are voters and some of us are not. So you're wondering, is he talking about me? If he knows the 16 people who voted for him, that means he knows the 85 people who didn't. So it's kind of cool. We always hear athletes give us that kind of storyline. Well, I don't read what I don't care what people are saying. I don't pay attention to what people are saying. When we know that's not the truth, they, whether directly or indirectly, they pay attention to every little thing. And I wrote about it after that game. I said that if we get no better reminder of the pettiness of all-time great players, if you watch The Last Dance, Michael Jordan made sure to put it on full display that, as you mentioned, these guys need something, even 17 years in, playing at the level that LeBron has played at. There's never, a moment when they don't need a little bit of chip on their shoulder to get fired up.
We're going to hear a lot more out of this from LeBron James in the next 3, 4, 5 years, however long he's going to play, because he's aging and he's still great. But at some point, that scale is going to tip and he's going to be using all of this. We're going to be hearing way more. We're going to have, wow, man, LeBron never used to say stuff like this. Well, yeah, he's 40. He's still giving them 15, 18 a night, whatever he's doing. But he's going to be putting everybody on blast until he gets to the finish line. So bring it on, man. It makes for very interesting coverage, and it just gives you a great understanding of how powerful the NBA is and how fun it is, and so it's awesome.
No question about it. We're going to hear more of you on TNT's broadcast of the Western Conference Finals. Brian Anderson joined us here on the Hang Time Podcast. B.A., I appreciate you so much. Have fun over there in Yellow Land. Order some room service for me, and get out and walk and breathe in that good fresh air. That I think the air is different over here in the green part of the bubble. I know you said we don't call it yellow and green, but it smells different when we get out of here.
Different kind of clientele over there you're hanging out with, Sekou. So I think they've brought in the better oxygen. There's a lot of favor you've been given over there with the cool kids. Always great to be with you, man. Keep up the great work, and honored to be on your podcast, man. It's always fun to chat with you.
Thank you so much, B.A. I appreciate it, sir. We'll see you soon.